Centuries ago, before the rivers carved their way through the land, and before the Drakensberg Mountains stood tall, there was a Zulu warrior named Ntando. Ntando was no ordinary man. He was known far and wide for his unmatched strength, courage, and loyalty to his people. His muscles rippled like the thunderclouds that rolled across the sky, and his eyes gleamed with the determination of one who had never been defeated. Yet, despite all his victories in battle, Ntando's heart was restless. He had heard the stories told by the elders of how the gods shaped the land, creating the mountains, the rivers, and the skies. The gods, it was said, watched over the people and granted favor to those who showed strength and honor. But Ntando felt that his victories on the battlefield were not enough to earn the gods' favor. He sought a sign, something that would prove to his people, and to the gods, that he was truly worthy. One evening, after a successful battle, Ntando stood at the edge of his village, gazing at the towering Drakensberg Mountains in the distance. They loomed like giants over the horizon, ancient and silent, their peaks lost in the clouds. Ntando had always felt a connection to those mountains, as though they were calling to him. He knew that if he wanted to prove himself, he would have to seek out the gods at the highest point of the Drakensberg. Determined, Ntando gathered his belongings and set off on a journey. He traveled for many days, crossing valleys and plains, through forests and along winding rivers. As he approached the mountains, their sheer size began to overwhelm him. Yet his resolve never wavered. He would climb to the top and speak to the gods themselves. After days of relentless travel, he finally reached the base of the great Drakensberg. The air was thinner here, and the wind howled as if in warning. Ntando knew that the journey ahead would test not only his strength but also his spirit. But he was prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead. As he began his ascent, he prayed to the gods. Great ones, hear my plea. I, Ntando, ask for a sign of my worth. Show me that my strength is true, that I am favored in your eyes. The wind seemed to answer with a low, rumbling whisper, and the mountains groaned as if shifting in response. Ntando climbed higher, his muscles aching, but his spirit unbroken. He would prove himself to the gods, no matter the cost. The path up the mountain was treacherous, and Ntando faced many obstacles. Sharp rocks tore at his skin, and icy winds battered him from all sides. But the warrior pressed on, his determination unwavering. The higher he climbed, the more he felt the presence of the gods around him. Every gust of wind, every rumble of the earth seemed like a test, challenging him to keep going. As he reached a narrow ledge, a sudden roar filled the air. Ntando looked up to see a mighty eagle swooping down toward him. The bird's wings were vast, its talons sharp as spears, and its eyes glowed with the light of the gods. Ntando knew this was his first trial. He would have to defeat the creature to prove his worth. Without hesitation, Ntando unsheathed his spear and stood firm. The eagle let out a deafening screech and dived toward him. With the speed of a true warrior, Ntando leaped to the side, narrowly avoiding the bird's talons. He thrust his spear upward, aiming for the eagle's heart, but the creature was quick, dodging his attack with ease. The two battled fiercely, the wind whipping around them as the eagle struck again and again. Ntando's arms grew tired, but he refused to give up. With one final surge of strength, he spun on his heel and hurled his spear with all his might. The weapon flew true, striking the eagle's wing. The bird let out a pained cry and retreated into the clouds. Breathing heavily, Ntando watched as the eagle disappeared from sight. He had passed the first trial. But he knew more challenges lay ahead. As Ntando continued his climb, the weather grew worse. Snow began to fall, and the ground beneath him became slippery and dangerous. He had to be careful with every step, for one wrong move could send him plummeting to his death. Yet, even as the elements raged against him, Ntando felt a new strength filling his body. The gods were watching, and he knew he had their attention. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Ntando reached the summit of the mountain. The world stretched out below him, vast and silent. The sky above was dark, filled with swirling clouds. Ntando raised his arms to the heavens. Be great gods, I have faced your trials and overcome them. Now, I ask again, grant me a sign of my worth. The air grew still, and for a moment, there was silence. Then, the ground began to shake beneath Ntando's feet. The rumbling grew louder, and the ground trembled violently as though the very bones of the earth were shifting. Ntando stood his ground, his heart pounding, as the sky above him darkened further. The gods were responding, but in a way he had never expected. The clouds gathered, thick and heavy, swirling in a furious dance around the mountain's peak. Suddenly, with a deafening crack, the mountain split open. Rocks tumbled and crashed as a great chasm formed before Ntando. From deep within the earth, a surge of water began to rise. At first, it was a trickle, but soon it grew into a mighty stream, cascading down the newly formed cliffs with unstoppable force. Ntando watched in awe as the water poured out, roaring as it made its way down the side of the mountain, carving a path through the rocks. The gods had answered his prayer, not with words, but with action. They had split the mountain to create a waterfall, a living testament to Ntando's strength and determination. The water gleamed in the faint light, a silvery stream flowing from the heart of the mountain itself. As it tumbled over the edge, it sparkled like diamonds, reflecting the power and majesty of the gods. Ntando fell to his knees, humbled by the sight before him. The god's voice boomed across the mountain, carried by the wind. Ntando, you have proven your strength and your worthiness. This waterfall shall stand as a symbol of your courage, and it will flow for all time as a reminder of the bond between the earth and the heavens. The water cascaded down, becoming what we now know as the Tugela Falls, the highest waterfall in Africa. The people of the land came from far and wide to see the magnificent sight, marveling at the powerful streams that seemed to fall from the very sky. They told stories of Ntando's bravery, and how the gods had split the mountain in honor of his strength. Ntando returned to his village, forever changed by his journey. He was no longer just a warrior, he had been touched by the gods, and the waterfall they had created was a sign of his enduring legacy. The Tugela Falls continued to flow, its waters a symbol of life, strength, and the eternal connection between the people and their gods. And so, the story of Ntando and the Tugela Falls was passed down through the generations, a tale of courage, faith, and the unbreakable bond between man and nature.